Ladies and gentlemen, I am SidAlpha. Before we get into things, I have to start off by saying I was goaded into playing this game by a friend of mine because it possesses several aspects of video games that I simply do not like. Those being horror and puzzles. Now, I'm just personally not a fan of either of those. I don't find horror games to be frightening, and puzzle games have a nasty habit in my eyes of being either far too complicated or ridiculously simple, and when you throw horror elements on top of it, it's usually a recipe for disaster. However, I spent 2 nights playing this game, and while yes, the gameplay mechanics are simple, it was readily apparent to me that this game had much more to offer than I had first anticipated. So let's take a look at the options menu before we dive into the surprise that is Zero Time Dilemma. Alright, we actually have to show the options menu in 2 parts because the game's options are actually in 2 parts. When you first launch the game, you have an option to go into the configuration settings where we have window mode, windowed, borderless, or full screen, resolution, where we have all your standard resolutions all the way up to 4K. VSync on or off, we'll actually turn that off. Anti-aliasing MSAA, off 2, 4, 8, or 16. Anti-aliasing TAA, on or off. Motion blur, on or off. And that's it for this portion of the menu. So let's transition over to the in-game options menu and we can show you the rest of it. Alright, and here we are at the in-game options menu where we have subtitles on or off, skip text on or off, basic music volume, which BGM, slider, SFX volume, voice volume, cursor speed, vertical camera axis, horizontal camera axis, and spoken language, English or Japanese. That's it. So pretty basic options overall. I'm curious as to why they decided to break the different components out. Perhaps the out-of-game custom overlay is a retooling of a Unity options menu that they just retooled that. A little confusing there, but you know, it's basically enough. You can get by with everything in there. It gives you all the standard basic options, and for a game where it's mostly extremely narratively driven and there's not a whole lot of action, as this is basically a puzzler game with psychological thriller elements thrown into it, there's not a lot of complexity needed there. So for a lot of this, I would give it a pass. However, I did note once again, there is no colorblind option, which I always keep an eye out for those because, come on guys, it's 2016. You should include colorblind options that shows a lot of thought and care towards your consumers, and it would earn you psychotic amounts of street cred when you throw things like that in, because it shows that you care. So this is Zero Escape, Zero Time Dilemma, and I have to admit, I was at a bit of a loss on how to describe this. It's a casual game, but it's a puzzler. It's a visual novel, but there's gameplay. There's also voice acting, branching storylines, multiple choices, and dialogue that you have to pay attention to for clues and information. This game managed to pack a good deal of complexity into what at first seemed to be a very simple format. Now let's start off with the premise of the story. There are 9 people that have been kidnapped or captured from a facility called Decon, which is a volunteer program in preparation for a mission to Mars or something like that. Now these people are being forced to undergo your typical horror movie style theme of playing the Resident Psychopaths game in order to try and survive. Now in this instance, the whack job that you're introduced to calls him or herself Zero, or Second Zero for those of you that are paying attention. And he starts you off with one simple decision. What color is face up on the coin that was flipped? Was it red or was it blue? The game is so dedicated to the power of player choice that if you guess right, like I did on my first try, he lets you go and the credits roll. Now, I thought that was both hilarious and awesome at the same time, but it also serves to introduce you to the way the game's storytelling mechanics work. Now, each scene has a series of events or choices in it that allow your team members to either live or die. Anytime there's a choice, or what Zero calls the decision game, the team leader has to choose between options A, B, or sometimes C and D. Now, each choice has the potential for dire consequences for either one or more people. In addition to that, the scenes are all out of order. Now, that's done seemingly intentionally, as so many aspects of this game are. This is rationalized by the devices the captives wear on their wrists. Now, they inject them with a sedative and a compound that makes them forget every 90 minutes. This means you have to try and figure out and piece together the true sequence of events, and also which events you need to try and avoid, as they may cause the deaths of multiple people. Now, the complexity of the game continues on further, with at least one of the captives may not be all they seem to be, adding in even more intensity and general mistrust. Also, there are even puzzles that can only be figured out if you pay attention to the dialogue and clues that you pick up from the characters' interactions. The depth to this game simply astounded me and really drew me in. Even though the game still falls to the trappings of Japanese culture and forces some time travel crap down your throat, the overarching exploration of multiple realities and the effects of choice and scientific theories behind the multiverse, I ultimately found a great deal of respect for both the game and its developers. Now, the puzzles themselves are challenging, without being overly so for most of them, with only a few of them being too basic. In addition to that, some of the puzzles introduce random elements that make it so you only have a percentage of success no matter what. Just like Zero, the game doesn't care whether you succeed or not, only that the game is played. And with good graphics, the game keeps you engaged with ever-increasing difficult puzzles, where even when you are successful, the chances of survival diminish. The game also features some decent voice acting for characters that, while being fairly stereotypical, are still interesting and engaging. I found myself genuinely invested in the survival of some of them and found myself going back and replaying several scenes to try and find a better outcome. While not a very mechanical game, Zero Time Dilemma offers good voice acting, good graphics, an interesting and branchy storyline with multiple outcomes, and a depth and richness to the game as a whole that took me completely off guard, and I'm glad that it did so. Without a doubt, this is the first ever horror game that I feel confident in recommending. Even if it's a psychological thriller, it sets itself up as a paragon of the genre. With easily over 20 to 30 hours of gameplay, Zero Time Dilemma will keep you engaged and offer a good value for its asking price. So once again, this has been a look at Zero Escape, Zero Time Dilemma. It was released June 29th on Steam and is available for $40 or your original equivalent. Thanks again, boys and girls, for watching. As always, I am SidAlpha, and I will see you next time. Hi there, boys and girls, thanks for checking my video out. If you liked what you saw, don't forget to hit that like button and maybe even that subscribe button. Trust me, it works really good. Don't forget to share with your friends, and if you're interested in following me on Twitter and Facebook, the links for that are in the description down below. I also have a Patreon if you're interested in helping to support the growth of my channel, and the link for that is down below as well. And once again, thanks for watching and supporting my channel, guys. I really appreciate it.